And so, Dr. Carmen, can you break it down for us? What is Black girl menstrual magic and why and how really do we sync our lifestyle with our period? Like, how do we do that? Like, we live in a capitalist society. How does that work?
Yes, this is an excellent question, Dr. Dom. So, what it means is increasing your self knowledge and understanding your natural rhythm, your natural cycle. And so all of us are different, but when we sync to our own cycles, it's fantastic. So I'm going to take you on a little journey. I'm going to take you on a 28-day journey through the cycle. And of course, knowing that this is a general picture that I'm going to create, and that, everybody is different. So first off, let's do a little bit of, we're going to keep it simple and just do a little bit of education around the cycle. The menstrual cycle has 4 phases. All right. So I'm going to start us off with the one phase that most of us are familiar with, and that's the menstruating phase, when we're actually flowing, we're actually bleeding. And so this cycle, or this phase of the cycle, it beautifully matches with winter. We have 4 cycles or 4 seasons. Yes, I think we have 4 seasons. So winter is the time where, the nights are longer and we stay indoors. It's the time of reflection. It's also a time of purging, right? Yes, so that is where we're going to begin this cycle. It's a time for a lot of us, and now I'll talk about some differences in a second, but for a lot of us, this is a time to slow down. This is really a time to pay attention to your dreams as well. And if you can, to write down those dreams, whatever you remember when you wake up in the morning. So this, in terms of our cycles, from the first day of you bleeding, that's day 1, and then you start counting from there. So that could be 5 days, 4 days, 7, it depends, right? So then we move into the next phase, which is the follicular phase. And so this is equated to spring. Spring is new beginnings. Ooh, I'm coming out, I'm blooming, I'm blossoming, right? Yes, and so this is a beautiful time to, manifest or start working on those creative ideas. If you have, projects that you're working on, this is the time where you want to get into those and actually schedule your calendar around this cycle, yes, that I am sharing with you. This is where the power comes. This is where the magic comes from. And so again, depending on, that could be day 5 to day 13, it varies, right? So the next phase of the cycle, which a lot of people are familiar with, at least a lot of grown folks are familiar with, is ovulation. So if you're trying not to get pregnant or you're trying to get pregnant, you want to know when ovulation is. And ovulation equates beautifully with summer. Like, oh, I'm feeling sexy. The sun is out. The days are long. This is when you might socialize more, do more of those creative projects. It tends to be more activity during this summertime, right? You might be feeling sensual, that's your ovulation phase. And creation, because of course, we think about, we equate procreation, with the menstrual cycle, but we are creators of everything, okay? Not just babies. We are creators of ideas. We are creators of technology. We are just creators of how to communicate with our loved ones. We are creating all the time, okay? So then the last phase of the cycle is what we call the luteal phase, okay? And this equates beautifully with fall, right? Now, this particular phase is what's happening with that term PMS, okay? Or premenstrual syndrome. Now, I would like to reframe that acronym to premenstrual service, and that is service to self. Because what is happening in this luteal phase is that we become our Black girl magic senses become heightened, and we are paying attention to those things that that we're not going for anymore. Those things that we aren't liking, we're not paying attention to, we're not liking this communication. We're not liking how that person does that. We're paying attention to those things that aren't fair and aren't right. And we have very little patience for them. And so it is time during this luteal phase for the premenstrual service. So this is a beautiful time to journal. What are those things that are irritating? What are those things that, aren't right? What ways have you been violated that you didn't speak on, right? That you held your tongue for whatever reason. And so it's really important to acknowledge those things during the luteal phase and start to clean them out. Clean them out. This is also a beautiful time to purge your clutter. A lot of us, have clutter around the house, stuff in our closet that we haven't worn for 5 years. So it's the time to clean that out, right? And so if you can imagine that these phases of the cycle in these 4 quadrants, right? And at the beginning of every month, you plan your life according to your phases, to your cycles. This is just so empowering. So I'll give you a small, but it's an important example. So one of my colleagues, or the women that I work with, during her luteal phase and her menstrual phases, because she tracks her experiences, and I'll talk about that in a minute. For her, it's a time where she fumbles over her words a lot. She gets tongue-tied. So she does not schedule speaking engagements when she's in her luteal phase. She doesn't schedule them when she's menstruating. She schedules them when she's in her spring phase, when she's in her summer phase, right? When she's in that ovulation phase, because that's when things click for her. Things click. And so that is the power of the self-knowledge that we're talking about, and syncing your lifestyle with it. Now, in order to know this, you have to track your cycle. This is really, really key. You can do an app if you want. There's been some controversy around apps lately with, yes. But there's also some beautiful, you can use your own journal. There's a beautiful one that I use. It's so comprehensive, called the Cycles Journal, where you're tracking, not only your temperature, but you're tracking your emotions. You're tracking your bowel movements. You're tracking your libido. You're tracking everything. And so it's that comprehensive, and it's that type of knowledge, Dr. Dom, that we need in order to sync our lifestyles with our cycles. So once you do at least, 2 or 3 months of tracking, you're going to have the patterns that you need in order to sync it up.
That is so incredible, Dr. Carmen. I am blown away with how you just broke that down. And what I love most about what you shared is that it keeps us in a regular rhythm of self-care, rest, creativity, reflection, and slowing down. Because you said this, I was like, oh, I need to reflect on what my cycle is like these days.